starting my speech, starting my speech in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So this is how I'm going to structurize my arguments. Firstly, I'm going to try to negate all of and debunk all of the arguments coming from opening government. Secondly, I'm also going to debunk closing government. And lastly, I'm going to prove in my argument why then we mechanize and we are substantially better than our opening to begin with, right? Firstly, let's talk about opening government. They have two identities in this debate. Firstly, their biggest concern is about things like patent, things about no competition that will lead to monopoly, things about no innovation, things about this innovation being used only by celebrities or elitists and whatnot. But their second concern is in regards to comparison. They are more reliant to government because government have social contract. They are more reliable. They have the mandate from the society. Therefore, they need to be more accountable, yada, 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 and whatnot, right? One contextualization and one actual truths to debunk all of these arguments from opening government, because they have a very good framing, but their facts is very misleading, right? NASA, or Soviet Space Program, or ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, never or even rarely built their own rockets and spaceships. The Orion, the rocket that is being used by Neil Armstrong to go to the moon in 1960s, is built by Lockheed Martin, a private company that is being given exclusive contract to build spaceship for NASA during Richard Nixon's era. The Ventura spaceship being used as a satellite cargo to Saturn that is being used by Yuri Gagarin and Vijay Shandiv in 1975 is not built by government-based Soviet space program, but it's built by Haddam Van Meester to begin with, also a private company being given contract to build rocket for SSP and ISRO. The only moment where NASA, SSP, and ISRO or any other government-based space institution actually create their own spaceship and rocket is on the early 2010 when they launched their first AXL-3OLO rocket to Neptune to combat Blue Origin's launch of the BRD satellite to Neptune. It's only in early 2015 when NASA launched their first DCL Boeing spaceflight to Mars to combat SpaceX Mars program in 2015. Why does this truth really matter, and why does this truth is the most important context in this debate? Because it proves three things. First, it debunks any analysis coming from government bench in regards to government being reliable, capable, or working on good faith, because they have even been utilizing private industry technology to sustain their fascist agenda to begin with, right? What NASA provides is only training for astronauts that can utilize the rockets instead of building their own rockets. Second thing that this context actually proves, the more important conclusion is that if what you want is innovation from the government, then you need to make sure that they have competitors that threaten their legitimacy, that makes their society question their ability to control the space exploration race. And that is only existing under the work on opposition bench to begin with. But lastly, we're going to be very charitable. Even if innovation will be existing under government structures, even if, let's say, NASA suddenly will have the ability to build rockets and satellites on their own, this is also not going to be accessible, exactly because their purpose is to do safe space exploration, not the purpose of human migration, like what SpaceX and Blue Origin actually have to begin with. So under their side of the house, the only one that can utilize this rocket is only astronauts to begin with. It is not the people on the grassroots. It's not people on Indonesia. It's not people on India. Not as good as what Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister actually wants to believe. Now let's kick out CG, right? Because they want to focus on environmental protection. They want to focus on developing country. They want to focus on repairing Earth. Two reasons why this is never going to fly in this debate. First, because this is very dismissive to our opening. I think that our opening have wonderfully explained why environmental protection will be better under their side of the house, because space exploration actually enables the innovation of green technology and whatnot. But I'm also secondly going to take it a step further by explaining to you that the reason why they should be left out in this debate is that because we think that the other three benches have made a concession that environmental fight have been useless anyway, because there is polarization of politics. There is a pragmatic environment approach, such as big country pulling out from Kyoto Protocol or Green New Deal as much as they want to begin with. So we should only focus on human migration to begin with. Any other argument in regards to saving the Earth will be counted less and should not be credited, right? One argument in this debate: how the rise of capitalist tycoons leading the current space race will trigger a more sustainable international space exploration cooperation, even among polarizing countries such as US and Russia. They will lead to more accessible human spaceflight, even to people living in other countries or even small countries such as people living in Southeast Asia, right? Because we think that opening opposition did an amazing job explaining why the space race that is being led by government is always politicized, it's always polarized, and comparatively relying on private sector will trigger more innovation such as jobs and whatnot, right? But what is missing under their side of the house is that they never explain to you why then Russia and USA will suddenly not compete and will cooperate in this space exploration program for the benefit of humanity rather than satisfying their hegemony if you focus more on private sectors. And this is going to be the identity of closing opposition, right? We said that throughout the 1950s, even to 2000 era, the US and Russia space programs have always attacked each other severely, right? We said that the event that we call as the Cold War space race or even the solar system race, this trend always competing with one another to begin with. We see NASA and SSP or Soviet space program actually competing on so many petty levels, for example. Like they're competing on who gets to land on the moon first, who gets to see the entire picture of other planets such as Jupiter or Neptune first, who gets to create the biggest man-made AI satellite and place it on far, far away planets such as Saturn first and whatnot, right? This petty fight is based on egoistical, selfish, and need to satiate their fascist agenda as a hegemon, not to create a space exploration for the sake of saving humanity. So if what CG wants is to save people and not to kill people, you are the one who kill people to begin with, right? This fraction leads to three structural problems. First, the inability to truly create an advanced innovation to pursue human spaceflight or even human migration to other planets. How is that so? Three reasons. Firstly, because both NASA and SSP are both governmental institutions, they need to rely their funding and resources on government, which is plenty, but also limited because government need to focus on other things. But secondly, because both of them focus too much on showcasing their innovation, that's why the subjects that they train is mostly astronauts to flaunt their extraordinary manpower and whatnot, to intimidate the other country for pragmatic benefits such as easier trade, easier hegemony and whatnot. But lastly, they do not even trade human or even common civilian as us, exactly because they have limited resources and is only accessible for astronauts. But second structural reasons is because this petty fight also makes society skeptic and treat space exploration as a utopic idea that could only exist in fairy tale. Because people are tired, exactly like what PM wants. You want to use taxpayer money, but people are tired of their tax being used as a petty manpower showdown for equally petty and pragmatic reason to only strengthen hegemon as opposed to truly being treated as something that can save them or protect humanity. This is why in NASA polls being conducted in 2020, more than 70% of the people answer no when being asked whether or not they want to use their tax for space exploration, and more than 57% people actually prefer their money to be utilized for military, law enforcement, and whatnot, right? So if what CG wants to say is to kill people, you're the one that kills people by making people lose hope and by making your product inaccessible for people to begin with. But what is the comparative under our side of the house, right? In January 2021, the Voyager, a private space company from Russia, the Ganila, a private space company from India, and SpaceX signed a human spaceflight treaty because they believe that their products can complement each other. SpaceX can complement because they specialize on human trainings and civilian spaceflight. The Voyager can provide steel because they specialize in making rockets, and Ganila can focus on fuels because they have a lot of resources in their country to begin with, right? This cooperation is something that is only possible. This cooperation from these countries that have been on war on space exploration to begin with have only been accessible under our side of the house when you have the technologies, when you have the infrastructures to bargain with these other companies, for example. Even if this is for profit oriented, we say that is exactly a benefit, because if you want more profit, you need to make sure that more people are going to use your facilities rather than being a government that's only nationalized or even fascist oriented to begin with, right? This is the cooperation, and this is the exclusive benefit that will only exist under the word of closing opposition. We're very proud to oppose.